buying a home is an emotional experience. So a lot of these builders, especially the cheaper builders, they really try to focus on putting an emphasis on how that house makes you feel when you walk in versus actually looking at how it was built and what materials were used. So what I would say is the most important things in the build of a house are the ones that you actually can't see. So it comes down to the questions that you're asking, which is why it's so important to have a good buyer's agent who knows what questions to ask, right? Like what kind of insulation are they using? What's the spacing on their floor joists? Is the insulation above code or is it at code? What kind of tile are they using, right? As opposed to a lot of houses, they definitely do cut corners and they put more of an emphasis on staging it properly and kind of like keeping what buyers see and ask questions about a little bit more surface level.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt, that is Shawn, and welcome to our show. Shawn, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the state of the Northern Virginia new construction market, the new builds, the teardowns, the quality, what to look for. Are builders cutting corners? I think everyone in the comment section is going to have some thoughts on that. And to help us out today, we have a very special guest with us today is Mike Baffa from KMC Homes and Real Broker. Mike sells some of the top new construction products on the market right now in the Northern Virginia, Vienna, McLean, North Arlington kind of premier areas. If you're looking for new construction, you've probably come across this guy's mug a time or two. Mike, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
There's so much about what you do that I think a lot of agents want to learn more about, because when you're driving by and you see the $2 million, the $3 million, the $4 million homes that you're listing quite frequently, agents are like, I want to do that. How can I do it? Now, of course, they don't see the millions of headaches that you have to deal with at that price point, with delays, with contractors, with, discerning clients and everything that comes to that. But I think most agents are like, yeah, $3 million listing, sign me up. But that just didn't happen to you, or maybe it did. So walk us through how you got connected with the builder, who the builder is, and what that process looked like for you.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Probably the most frequent question I get, especially from agents. I think everybody kind of sees the part of the business where you're selling the $3-4 million homes, like you said, and they don't really see kind of what's gone into that leading up to that, just like anything else in business, right? So I got into real estate on the backside of kind of getting out of the Army and the physical security industry, and I kind of wanted to make a transition into something that was like not necessarily wearing on me mentally and physically anymore, because I joined the Army when I was 17. I did physical security in Baghdad for the State Department up until like 2014-ish. And I kind of hit a crossroad in my life where I was like, all right, either I need to make a decision and kind of get away from this industry as a whole and get into something a little bit more entrepreneurial, which I had kind of explored the idea of. When I was in Baghdad, I had a real estate agent. I had 4 real estate agents when I was in Baghdad in a 6-month period.
In the United States?
In the United States. Yeah. I was shopping for homes in the U.S., and I was only 23, 24 at the time. And I remember thinking, like, man, like this is such an unpleasant experience. And all I needed was like a little bit of guidance at the time, right? That was it. A little bit of education, a little bit of guidance. And it felt like I was kind of like leading and guiding the conversations and telling them the homes that I was interested in purchasing. So I remember, like all people do that aren't real estate agents, I Googled, how much does a real estate agent make? And 3%. I was like, oh my God, that's a lot of money. And which obviously is, disingenuous of how much we actually make.
Sure.
But it kind of like, it made me start to think there really was an opportunity, and not just an opportunity, but a need for quality real estate services. And that was because of the bad experiences I was having. So left Baghdad, got into real estate. I joined a team, Dan Rochon. You guys know Dan Rochon?
I get his emails.
Yeah, we all do. Yeah. So Dan Rochon was a very polarizing figure in my real estate career. He hired me as an inside sales agent. I was licensed. And he brought me in his office and he made me sit down behind him and make phone calls for 9 hours a day.
Wow.
And I did that for 6 months and I hated it. But in that time, I learned a valuable skill that a lot of realtors don't have. And that's the ability to pick up the phone, call people, and find ways to show value to people. And that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me in my real estate career. And then I went to my first listing appointment and it was like, oh, wow, like this is the easy part. The hard part is getting the client, getting in front of that client.
Yeah.
So we went on that listing presentation and that's when I made my transition to becoming a full-time realtor. There's another person that I'm going to bring up that was a polarizing person in my real estate career. I went to KW Metro Center and I met George Murad. And George Murad was the new construction guy of the office. And I just remember this guy pulling up in his Porsche every day, talking about all these homes he's putting on the market in Vienna, these multi-million-dollar deals. And I remember going home to my girlfriend one night and being like, I need to learn how to do that. So that's when I started strategizing. And this was like 2017, 2018. So I started kind of like thinking, my real estate career progressed. I went from doing nothing my first 2 years to doing, I would say by 2018, 2019, I was doing maybe 10 to 15 million on standard resale clients. And one day I had on one of my listings in Vienna, I had a builder call me. And that builder was Lou Payton with Apex. And he called me and he said, real quick, guy can't stand realtors. He got on the phone. He said, I want to buy this house cash. And I said, oh, it's under contract actually. And he said, oh, I'm a builder in the area. I don't want to talk to you, and hung up the phone. So I immediately, instead of calling him back, I called my girlfriend and I said, a builder that doesn't like realtors just called me. And I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to show as much value as possible and convince this guy to work with me. So I spent the next year calling this guy, finding lots and saying, hey, Lou, I got a lot for you to build a house on. And every single lot, he said, nah, that's useless. I have no interest in it. And that just came from the fact that I didn't know what to look for yet, right? I was still learning how to provide value to somebody like that. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I'm going to see where George is selling houses. So I typed it in, looked up his listings, and I typed in Vienna Woods. And this was March of 2020. And there it was, 311 George Street in Vienna. And it was for sale for $550,000. So I called him up and he was like, this is it. And long story short, long story long, I provided him the lot. And then through that, we went out and looked at it together and he was like, this is a great location. The comps all match up. The zoning's right. Everything's perfect. Let's do it. And I'll give you the listing. And on that same day, he gave me 2 $1.8 million listings in Delray. Now, it was at a reduced commission, and so was the 311 George. But I used that as my opportunity. And from there, I transitioned into how am I going to show this guy so much value that he has to make me a permanent part of his team. And that's what I did. So that's how I ended up in new construction.
That's great. And the thing is, now you see how much work that entailed to find that one builder. I mean, I've been doing this 20 years. I don't have a builder. I mean, that's a really tough thing to find, and finding that relationship is really hard, but you can see how much work he put into it. It didn't just come overnight. He strategized about it. He talked about it. He learned different strategies, being able to talk on the phone, and then beat that horse dead until he got it, and that's what a lot of people don't want to put in that work, that legwork.
So the 550, was that on the market or was that off market? How did you find this random lot in Vienna?
It actually was on the market. And the reason it was such a good deal is March 20, there was a little something happening called a pandemic. Mm-hmm. And there was so much fear in the market. That was before the prices really started to skyrocket. And we had both agreed, and I had a long conversation with him, and we both agreed that those were the opportunities to start purchasing, is when everybody else was fearful. So that's why he made that decision to move forward with that. And that ended up being probably $100,000 under what it was worth because of the opportunity and the timing.
So building new constructions, I have so many questions, not sure where to start. I'll just start at the finishes. How do you go about knowing what the buyer wants, the finishes, what level of quality are you going towards? Because we're in an area where buyers are savvy enough where if they walk through a house, they can tell if something has been done poorly or if the quality materials aren't there. So are you doing a lot of trips to Floor and Decor? What's a day in the life of Mike Baffa?
Yeah, definitely a lot of trips to Floor and Decor. I mean, my whole business model with Lou became, and this really kind of ties back to like learning how to be a good agent to your regular clients. It's the same thing. I treat my builder like he's one of my buyers or other sellers, in the sense that I wake up every day trying to find ways to provide value to him. So unfortunately, that's come with a lot of, I'm the one that finds all of his financing. I'm the one that helps him raise money through investors. I'm the one that helps him make selections at Floor and Decor, like you mentioned. And I'm on the job site almost every day. I'm helping him, identify lots, negotiate the lots. So my involvement is so much higher than what a standard realtor would expect to do. And with that, obviously comes a reduced commission as well, right? Because that's kind of the standard of working with a builder. Obviously it rewards itself very well. But yeah, so, I mean, my standard day is, waking up usually at 6 a.m. when he calls me, are you coming out to the job site today? And I'm like, well, maybe. I got all this paperwork I got to take care of. And then I usually I spend most of the day talking to investors, talking to the bank. Sometimes it's making selections with him, like you said, at Floor and Decor or any of our other suppliers, getting on the job site. He wants me to learn the process as well.
So do you want to jump in?
Yeah, actually, I had a question about, like, right now interest rates are crazy. Mm-hmm. And I've always wondered how these smaller builders or whatever size builders they are, how they're getting their financing. What does that look like on a day-to-day basis? I mean, are you going to a brick and mortar bank, or are you finding private investors, or, is it hard money, or what does that entail, this lending side?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. This particular builder and some builders do it all, there's different variations of this, but this builder, he raises money on the equity side from investors. And then he raises the debt side from like a hard money lender, sometimes like a bank like Sandy Springs, mm-hmm. or which is more of like a traditional bank like Prime plus a point. And then sometimes it's through companies like Ground Floor, which is crowdfunding. So, the only skin he really has in the game, to be honest with you, is his operating capital, which is a couple $100,000 in each job. So it's it can be a very complicated process. On identifying that financing, especially with these rates. Some of the rates are adjustable, so definitely some of the projects we're feeling with these higher interest rates, we're definitely feeling the pressure.
When you're building these products, walk me through. You buy the lot, maybe there's a house on it, you tear it down. At what point are you selling the house? Are you doing spec houses? Are you doing custom houses? When is the buyer buying it? Are they buying it looking at a sheet of paper, or are they buying it pre-drywall, or are they buying it 90 days after it's been on the market?
Great question. Kind of a combination of all of the above. Working with buyers where selections are being made by the buyers is a whole other challenge in and of itself. Buyers, a lot of the times they struggle to figure out exactly what they want, especially when they can't see it on the walls or see the tile in place. So that challenge has kind of led this particular builder. He definitely likes to focus more on building a spec home and then selling it on the open market. So it varies. We pre-sell probably about 20% of our products. On that pre-sale, we'll give like 3 or 4 color selections, but we'll choose what those selections are going to be. About 20%, and then the rest of them, we go off market about 60 days prior to completion. And then after completion, we list the house as a fresh product, photos, but we do attempt to pre-sell each product.
How has your product changed over, say, the past 3 to 4 years? Are you selling the same house, the same blueprint you were selling in 2020? Or are you and your builder saying, well, wait a second, now all the buyers are wanting this feature or this, and we need to adjust, kind of as the years go on?
Yeah, it's a constant moving target with design, and it's a constant moving target with floor plans. So we really pay attention to our customers' feedback. and we put a strong emphasis on making those adjustments in those houses. I know our closets have gotten a lot bigger over the last couple of years. That demand has definitely increased. And then, as the styles change, we pay attention to what's selling and what's selling fast. And, like we're implementing more colors into our products now. So yeah, I mean, it's always a moving target. And then none of these lots are identical. They all have different zoning requirements. They all have different size requirements. So with that, every single home is custom designed with an architect and then put into blueprints and then, of course, run through permits and built.
What would you say are like the top 3 things that people are now looking for, whether it's, this type of kitchen or you mentioned the larger closet? What sorts of things when buyers walk in, it has to have like these 3 things?
Yeah, I mean, open concept is still definitely the thing that we're noticing. But I would say, yeah, the top 3 are going to be usable square footage is a strong emphasis, right? I think you find like a lot of older houses have a lot of dead space and unnecessary hallways.
Well, a lot of newer houses, though, hit 6,000 square feet just to hit 6,000 square feet, and it's not actually usable square feet. Like, what am I going to do with this ginormous dining room? So, if we want usable square feet, I mean, maybe it's build a smaller house that is actually functional rather than have this ballroom that is masquerading, no pun intended, as a dining room.
Yeah. And actually, we've kind of run into that before in the past where we try to be like, you got to strike like a fine line between cavernous and also open feeling, right? You want it to still feel like a home, but you also want it to be open. And when you're talking up to 9,000 square foot, that's a really difficult balance to strike. So yeah, I mean, it really comes down to, we have a philosophy that wherever the buyer's hands go, or where their eyes go, and whatever they're touching is going to really affect their perception of the quality of the product. So we really put a strong emphasis on, making sure the product is high quality in the fixtures, doorknobs, tile, things like that, flooring.
My hands go to the kitchen, and it goes to the microwave drawer. Like, whenever I go to an open house, I'm always like pressing buttons in the microwave drawer. Is that still a thing? Do we think that microwave drawers are going to be a thing in 10 years? Is that like the future? Are you doing the microwave drawers?
We are doing the microwave drawer.
Okay. Do people like the microwave? I think I like the microwave drawers. It just seems like a thing that may change in the future.
I think it'll change. I think people with kids don't like that.
You can have a machine that a toddler can press?
Yeah, that they can open it up and close it 100 times in one day.
Yeah. I have mine accessible right in the island. So like usually they're up above, the range or whatever.
You have yours in the drawer.
Mine's not a drawer, but it's an open. It
so
opens,
your builder
but it's
cut
in the
corners.
island.
They didn't even put a
did.
drawer in.
Yeah. But it's always fearful that they're going to put something in there or put their brother or sister in the microwave.
Bodie can't fit in a lot of things.
Not anymore,
he's a
man.
big dude.
He's a
big
big dude.
2-year-old. Well, speaking of cutting corners, I think a general sentiment is people look at houses and they're like, or new construction, they're like, that house was built way too quick. And they say, oh, this builder's cutting corners.
Yeah.
I'm curious because I've never built a house before. I don't know how long it takes. I don't really care how long it takes. But what I care with is if I am opening up the front door with a client, walking through a new construction product, what sorts of things should I or you be looking for that are telltale signs that this builder, these contractors maybe cut some corners that could come back to bite you?
That's a good question. So the builders have become very good at kind of creating a lot of smoke and mirrors when you walk into a house. And like I said, builders knowing how you like, all right, let me kind of bring this back a little bit. Buying a home is an emotional experience. So a lot of these builders, especially the cheaper builders, they really try to focus on putting an emphasis on how that house makes you feel when you walk in versus actually looking at how it was built and what materials were used. So what I would say is the most important things in the build of a house are the ones that you actually can't see. So it comes down to the questions that you're asking, which is why it's so important to have a good buyer's agent who knows what questions to ask, right? Like what kind of insulation are they using? What's the spacing on their floor joists? Is the insulation above code or is it at code? What kind of tile are they using, right? As opposed to a lot of houses, they definitely do cut corners, and they put more of an emphasis on staging it properly and kind of like keeping what buyers see and ask questions about a little bit more surface level. So yeah, I mean, I would say your insulation, you're going to want to know about the types of materials they're using for the actual construction of the home, the types of tile they're using. These are all things that are very important, whether the floors are actually real hardwood or not, which is really hard to decipher these days. So the siding, whether they're using PVC or wood trim, these are all things that buyers tend to overlook and builders take advantage of.
Now, in the whole process from, identifying a lot through building the actual product and getting it done, what would you say your toughest step is? Is it, finding the lot? Is it permitting? Is it, actually getting construction going? Is it, demolition? What's the most sticky part that you see?
Permitting by far. Permitting,
Hell.
yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible.
And it all depends on what county you're in too. So every
Absolutely.
county is going to be different, right?
Yeah. So my builder, he has stories all the time about this. 25 years ago, you could walk into Fairfax County with plans and the same day walk out with a building permit. And if you want to talk about something that's exacerbating the affordability of these homes, that's probably the number one thing.
Really?
Yeah, I believe so. Because, you're looking at 6 to 9 months before you get
Wow.
building permits sometimes.
And
Sometimes
that's cost just running, like holding costs that long.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand. There's a lot of HGTV people out there that, I can buy a lot and I can build a house on there. I'll just get a builder and build it myself. But they don't understand the finance side of it, of the hold, right? You don't know how long this is going to take. And the permitting side is just hell, getting through that.
I'll give you an example of a horror story for building permits. So in the town of Vienna, somebody, prior to us getting permits, took a photo of a bat in the backyard. They sent a photo of the bat to the town, and the town made us do a 90-day endangered species study before they would allow us to build. So that's just one example of like the red tape you can deal with. And this is an experienced builder who's building for 35 years. The average consumer to go out and try and navigate this stuff would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
So we really, if my builder could get permits in 24 hours, right, in theory, he could build probably 3 to 4 times more homes, which would increase the inventory by 3 to 4 times, which would allow pricing to be a little bit lower on some of these homes. So, and this is why, you go back to like the inventory crisis we're having and the underbuilding we're having, and these permits are only getting longer and worse. And really, at the end of the day, the only person it truly hurts is the consumer.
Yeah. And you were talking about inventory, like right now, I've been out in Vienna. I looked at houses in Vienna. I looked on Battle Street. If you know, of course, my last name's Battle. Of course, I wanted to live on Battle Street. But the amount of
It's
builders.
a great street, by the way.
Yeah, it is a great street. And I love the walkability of it. But, the amount of builders that were out there, just driving through, you see the signs, you see all the building that's going on. It's like the prime area because those lots are big. Those houses are small in there. It's a perfect situation. But there's a lot of competition, right? So what are you seeing right now as far as competition? Are you seeing a lot of competition in that? Is the inventory hurting you right now? How's that all going?
I think inventory is skyrocketing in new construction right now. And I don't think people really realize how bad it's getting. It's not terrible yet, but we're already in new construction in Vienna and North Arlington and McLean. We already have more new construction inventory than 2019.
Wow.
And these houses are taking a long time to sell.
That's right.
There was a lot of people and a lot of builders and a lot of want-to-be builders that kind of came into the market when everything was feeling euphoric and buying lots and trying to build homes themselves and delivering subpar products. And you're starting to see a lot of those just now finish. Because you have to think, the build process from acquisition to the time it goes on the market, you're looking at 18 months at least. Sometimes a little bit sooner, sometimes a little bit longer. So the homes you're seeing hit the market now were lots that were purchased when everything was still euphoric. I don't want to say good because it wasn't good, but everybody was making a lot of money back then, right?
And interest rates were totally different. I mean, that's the thing. That's what people have to understand is like the difference in interest rate. And a lot of these, the hard money might be interest, an adjustable rate, right? So then you're seeing your costs go up on that side of things as well. So.
Speaking of costs going up, I know you can't share every small financial detail, but what sort of profit numbers are we talking? And has your builder lost money before? Are you allowed to say that? Because as the real estate agent, as a consumer, when we see new construction, what do? Oh, I wonder how much they bought it for. Oh, they bought it for $800,000. They're selling it for $2 million. They're millionaires. They're gonna go to Aruba and live out the rest of their life. But it's obviously not like that. So, on a normal deal, on a great deal, on maybe a couple bad deals, what sort of numbers are we looking at?
Good question. So first, I want to say there's a misconception during COVID. There was a lot of backlash towards builders because they were trying to restructure their contracts on homes that they had previously sold prior to the skyrocketing of lumber prices and everything else. And they were looked at as greedy. But the truth is, this is the God's honest truth. What it cost to build a house in a matter of 12 months doubled. And even on homes, we were trying to pre-sell homes for $1.6 million. Thank God we didn't sell it. We ended up selling those homes, for example, this is just an example of one project, for 1.85, and we broke even.
Wow.
And when we purchased the lot, we were expecting to spend anywhere between $600,000 and $800,000 to build it. By the time it was all said and done, 1.1 to build, 1.2 to build sometimes.
Amazing.
And that's how much builders were affected. So, yeah, my builder, fortunately, he broke even on a couple deals but didn't really lose. But I do know of some builders, and I'm not going to put their names out there, but I do know of some builders that lost their investors some money during that time. And it on the surface level, it looked like they did really well because they sold it for $200,000 more than what they thought they were going to sell it for. But because those expenses were so high, they ended up losing money.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing that people don't think about as well is material costs changed so much during that time. And I heard of some builders actually putting in addenda or something into their contract that says, hey, if prices increase, then we're passing that on to you. I don't know exactly how they did that, but did you see something like that, or did you add something?
Yeah, we did it ourselves.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What did that look like?
Long story short, it was it was just one paragraph, and in that paragraph it said if it exceeded X amount of dollar per foot, they would cover the difference up to a maximum amount.
Okay.
So, and buyers were really good about being okay with that, right? A lot of them understood the kind of the market and the situation that we were in, and how rapidly inflation was no secret to anybody, right?
Yeah.
So we were all experiencing it in our own way. So they were pretty good about being receptive to the clauses that we were adding.
With the changing market, and you mentioned inventory, let's talk about what the state of the new construction market looks like. How would you describe that new construction market in Vienna, in Northern Virginia? And I apologize, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions at the same time.
You're good.
As a follow-up question, you also mentioned earlier that houses are taking a much longer time to sell. Why is that, and why don't people just lower the prices?
That's a good question. I think that, I don't think anybody wants to lower prices, right? Builders are going to hold out until they absolutely cannot before they start lowering prices.
Well, some of these builders, they're going to lose their shirt. They're going to not make any money. If you're doing this long 18-month timeline and maybe once or twice you're breaking even, sure, you got the sign in the yard, everyone knows your name, but if you're not making any money, then maybe you're better off without doing it in the first place.
You're absolutely right. I think some of these builders are trying to not lose money at this point. And I think that some of them are probably a lot of them are probably at a break-even state with what it's listed at now. And in theory, if they reduce that price, they're probably going to take a loss. That's my theory on what's happening based on conversations that I've had and people I know. I believe that there's a lot of builders that are in a really difficult position that are not cash heavy or who have notes on some of these loans. Some of these houses. What was, did I miss part of your other question? What was the other part?
So asking about the rising inventory levels, because I'm thinking how long should it take you to sell a $3 million house? I mean, that should probably take a while. By the way, I don't know if you saw this. Bradley Beal listed as $10 million house in Potomac. Just found a buyer on the market for like a month.
Imagine that.
I wonder if his name has anything to do with it.
Probably.
Yeah.
Or maybe Kyle Toomey, as Shawn said, Kyle Toomey running through the house probably helped to sell it. So another question, and I know we're jumping around here, but
You're good.
someone's walking into a new construction you're listing in Vienna or maybe North Stewart Street in North Arlington. By the way, taco truck, great move.
See there?
Taco
That's-
truck open house gets the people going.
That's it, man.
Where else are they walking into an open house? Are they saying, okay, well, we could get this house in North Arlington or Vienna, or we could go out to Oakton, or we could go out a little bit further? Or are they just, hey, we want to be in Franklin Park, is it Park or Farm? Which is the Park?
Yeah.
Are they just simply waiting for the right house to come up in that area?
You know, that's a really good question. So there's two parts to this. One, buyers at that price point don't need to move, rarely. Usually them moving is a want, right? Because these are people that are, well established, have a lot of finances. A lot of the times it's just moving from one house to the other, right? So rarely are they in a place where they're forced to make a decision very quickly. So the other part is when everything was amazing and selling in 24 hours, you could buy any piece of dirt, build a nice house on it, and it would sell. Slowest 30 days. The problem that builders are running into now is the ones who aren't buying the best lots on, say, Battle Street, for example, which is an amazing lot. It's in Vienna Elementary. Everybody wants to be on Battle Street, which is why there's no more little houses left on Battle Street.
Yeah.
So the builders that bought maybe not as premium lots in less premium parts of the neighborhood and built big expensive houses on those lots, those are the ones that are getting hurt the most, because buyers, they're still out there, but they're more selective than they've ever been. So they're being very cautious, they're taking their time, and they're picking just the right house, or they're going out and buying a lot and trying to build one on their own. So the houses that get left in the dust are the ones that are on, have negative slopes in the backyards, for example, have really unsightly neighbors across the street, which is common in Vienna because you still have all those 1960s homes that are, I think it's only 30 or 40% developed at this point. So the builders that are sitting on that inventory are going to get hurt. Things like over on Battle Street or Birch Street in the Vienna Elementary Triangle, those homes are always going to sell relatively quickly, even in a slower market like this. But that's what I'm seeing right now.
And again, it goes back to real estate 101. It's location, right? It's what your schools look like. Vienna Elementary, like when we were looking there, my wife grew up in Vienna and she was like, I want Vienna Elementary. Like she was the one that was making that decision. I was the one that was like, Battle Street, number one, Cherry Street, okay, like all those streets in there. But it's always about location, and then you start looking at the things that maybe we don't look at as much as like how the lot actually is affected with that slope or the negative slope or whatever. So I don't know, Matt.
So you're talking about cycles, and you're talking about, a lot of builders, investors, people with dollar signs in their eyes getting into the market in like that 2020 time frame, buying lots, thinking that they can make a gazillion dollars. They're selling off their products now. In terms of cycles, we're in a time where, geez, I mean, how many mailers do you think these people with lots are getting in Vienna,
Yeah.
They are just going to get inundated with all these builders, 20, 30 different builders. I don't know how many. So inventory is so tight right now, even for buying lots. What do you think the new construction landscape is going to look like 18, 24 months from now when maybe the houses that are languishing on the market now have sold, and the kind of next wave, if you will, from people that are buying with the higher interest rates, with the more competition, with all of the factors going on? What is that new construction market going to look like in 18 to 24 months?
I think it really just depends on what happens with our economy and the interest rates. So I think, I'm speculating interest rates will probably start to come back down in the midsummer. I don't think they're going to come back down to anything like 2 or 3%. I'll be honest, I'm relatively bullish 18 to 24 months from now. I think the market will start to reemerge. I think new construction products will start to decline in inventory a little bit. But I think we're going back to a balanced market in 18 to 24 months. That's what I believe. In the short term, I think you're going to see some pain in the new construction market. And I don't mean nationwide. I mean specifically some of these sub-luxury markets in the Northern Virginia area because there's just been an overabundance of new construction, and there just aren't that many people that want to buy $2 to $4 million houses right now.
Yeah, and that's the problem. When I was looking at houses, I'm like, well, I don't need a huge house, but what the builder's looking at is profit, right? And they're like, well, if I build a small house, it's almost just as much for me to build a huge house on there than it is a small house, because that price per square foot, is really what matters. And so like the smaller house is just almost as expensive. So I'm going to build the big house and maximize my profits. So that's kind of what it always looks like. You agree? I mean,
yeah. And the problem is consumers at this price point, they're educated and they're smart with their money, and they don't need 8,000 square foot houses, especially when there's any ounce of fear of a slowing market in the future, a recession, or whatever other impending doom is in the media. Yeah. So there's a lot of reasons to not buy a $3 million house right now.
Yeah.
And there's not a ton of reasons to buy one. So I do believe that even the luxury side, Vienna, and I'm not taking away with how desirable these areas are, and they'll continue to be desirable, and they'll continue to grow and be redeveloped, and people will continue to buy these homes. It's a tough sell right now today.
Yeah. Are you saw the inventory, or you're seeing the inventory kind of rise a little bit on the new construction? How are you seeing the demand for lots? Is it still competitive? Are these builders still trying to find these lots and competitive and buying them up, or has it kind of slowed down for you?
Yeah, that's one thing I've been wrong about. I thought lot prices were going to come down, and they have not. It's still kind of like a buying frenzy among the builders for some.
What do they go
lots.
for?
Well, it depends. So in Vienna, I would say your half acres are going to go for over $1 million. Your third acres are probably going to go a little over 900,000, and then your quarters are probably. I mean, I had one on Plum Street go recently for 860 something, which is high. That was very high for a quarter. But I mean, I would say anywhere between 750 and 850 for your quarters.
Yeah, and see, like those are numbers we're not seeing here because we don't see quarter acre lots. We don't see those bigger lots. We're looking at 5,000, 6,000 square foot lots. So out there the lots are a lot bigger. Plum Street's awesome. Spring Street, is that the one street that comes around? We used to obsess about that, but that had really big lots, and it was like you're not finding anything there.
Yeah.
Shawn was this close to being a Vienna man.
I was. And instead, I bought in Arlington. So,
are you happy you bought in Arlington?
Yeah, I am.
Good.
I didn't know Vienna as much. My wife was kind of pushing for that, but I do most of my business inside the Beltway and in Arlington, so I'm happy that we chose what we did.
So yours wasn't new construction, but
it was from a builder.
A full rebuild. What would you?
So yeah, I was looking new construction. I was talking to a couple different builders, but then actually Matt knew an agent and introduced me to him, and
didn't even get a referral fee.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Matt. But the thing with that lot is, it was, so I showed the house way like a year and a half before that builder bought it.
Yeah.
And it was listed on the market, and it was just this big house that just needed so much work. And so I was going to hire my own contractor and do all the work myself. And he's like, why don't you just buy a different house, and build a new house, instead of doing all this work. So for me, it was like, all right, what do I have to get this property at to make sense? And I was like, $1 million would be it, right?
Right.
Well, a builder ended up buying it for $1 million, and then they rehabbed that property. And so I bought it right in the middle of the pandemic as well, right when the fear was there. I sold my house in the fear, which sucked, but I bought that at the same time when there was fear in the market.
I think that's a net win for you.
It's a net win, yeah. That project for him was a one-off. He was like, usually he builds from the ground up, but this one he bought, and he's like, I'm just going to rehab it. So it's definitely a different house, a unique house, but I definitely got in there at the right time.
Did you ask the builder what type of insulation they had?
No, I didn't.
Far away
Actually,
the floor
I didn't
joists
ask him
were?
anything. I was like, please. My wife was pregnant. I'm like, dude, just get this thing done. I don't
shouldn't
care
have put so
anymore.
much of an emphasis.
Bought on
insulation.
emotions.
Yeah.
Bought on emotions.
I did buy on emotions, and I was like I went through what every person goes through. It's like, all right, I have to sell my house. Well, I have to afford this house. So what am I going to do? I sold this house. I got a rent back. Rent back wasn't long enough. I went into temporary housing, and then my wife was pregnant, and I'm like, I can't stand this anymore. Please just get me in the house. I don't care what is wrong with it. Just get me in.
You don't care what kind of insulation.
I definitely overlooked things, in
Yeah.
that process, because I'm like, you know what? I don't care anymore. I just need the house. I need to get in. And so you understand what buyers go through when you actually go through it yourself. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's unfortunately, and this is where, builders get a bad reputation sometimes, is you'll know what kind of house you're living in after a year of living in it.
Oh, yeah.
Things will start to fall apart where corners were cut. And there's only so much the county and home inspectors can do to protect you in those types of scenarios.
That's the absolute truth. You never know until you're a year in. And I definitely I see things now and I'm like, oh man, it drives me crazy, but it's part of the process. It's part of buying any home. You're not going to know everything that's wrong with the house. So take the good with the bad.
Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below if you have bought new construction and how you liked it after a year. Mike, we do a segment on the podcast called In or Out, and it's whether you're in or out on a property in the United States, could be in the world, and this one just happens to be in Washington, D.C. This is, and I couldn't think of a better person to ask these questions to, right? This is Fox News, Brett Baier's Fox Hill home that he has listed for $32 million. If this sells, this will be the most expensive house to ever sell in Washington,
and keep in
DC.
mind, Mike, you have $32 million to blow.
Okay.
So you have $32 million to blow. Are you buying
Is this
house?
just do I like it or not?
Are you in or out on this new construction home in DC for $32 million? Before you make your decision, let me set the stage a little bit.
See, sometimes he doesn't set the stage, and I buy houses, and then I find out later,
So it is located at 2400 Fox Hill Road in Berkeley. It is 6,000 square feet. I should just press every single button on my. Sorry, I said 16,000.
There
I was going to say, there you go.
What's the price per foot on that?
Every time I pull this up, I click the wrong thing on the iPad, and then things just go crazy. So let me just pull up the Zillow. So 31 point. I am not the listing agent. Daniel Hyder is the listing agent. By the way, you want to talk about a guy that has it all.
Oh my God.
The looks, the athleticism, the $31 million listings.
I think he could buy that house himself.
Some guys just have it all, So he is listing it. Great social media presence as well. It was inspired by Chateau du Grand Lucy in central France, and it has the best architect, the best developer, the best everything. It's got a game room. It has a golf simulator. It has a it has a half basketball court, a chipping range. It would dethrone the Bowie Seaver house, which sold in Georgetown for $24 million. So 16,250 square feet. Apparently, Baier and his wife spent $30 million building the home, according to the Wall Street Journal, but only lived in it for a year as the family relocated to Palm Beach, Florida. By the way, I didn't know TV hosts had this type of cash.
That's a lot of cash, and to just leave it vacant now after he built it for $30 million.
So
I was surprised at that.
By the way, look at that tie collection.
Wow, that's nice.
I was thinking I need to buy more
ties,
ties, but then I'm not on TV every single day.
Yeah.
I thought he wore the same tie every day.
Oh, that is them fighting words.
Yeah.
So, Mike, and then we got the home gym. $32 million. Are you in or are you out?
Is that a golf sim?
It is a golf sim.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
And he will crush the balls. I think that means crush the golf balls of people who don't respect me.
Am I allowed to give context to my
Sure,
decision?
yeah, absolutely.
You're allowed
Please
to do everything. Yeah.
Wow,
Even
that's
got a
a nice
pool back
pool.
there. What's it going to be?
If I only have $32 million, out.
Let's hear it.
If I have more than $32 million and I could renovate that horrible foyer in.
So the foyer's
Coming
not doing
from a
it
builder.
for you.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, yeah.
What is that? I bet you that tile is expensive, but.
Probably not the flooring I would have gone with.
No.
No. And too many, I don't like the spiral staircase. I like straight lines, too many radiuses. So there'd be some renovating happening.
What do you think the staging is on this? By the way, do you stage your properties?
We do.
Do you have a good stager?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I mean, it's
Good.
necessary. That's the one thing that I always say is if you're doing anything to this house, stage it because it makes it feel warm.
I bet
and
you the
comfortable.
staging on that was $50,000.
Oh my god.
So are you
imagine.
taking this at list price? Are you negotiating this? What was this going to go for?
$24 million.
24. That's quite the haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
That's quite the
sometimes
haircut.
You got to take the haircut.
Shawn, let's hear it. Have I given you enough context, by the way?
Yeah, this time you have. Usually you don't.
Brutal.
I say I'm buying it, and then you say, "Oh yeah, did I mention?"
Did I mention it's on a highway? Did I mention it's underground?
I mean, I know the neighborhood here. It's a gorgeous neighborhood. There's a lot of huge homes. I love some aspects of this house. I love the gym. I love the pool. I love the golf sims and the outdoor golf and there's a lot I like about it. I don't need a humongous house. That's just not my style. I love the wine thing. Even though I wouldn't drink the wine, it would probably just sit there. There's a lot that is cool about this house. I love the windows. You're right. The foyer just not doing it for me. I don't need that big foyer, and I'm not really a DC guy. I'm a Northern Virginia guy. I don't feel the need to spend $32 million on a house in DC, and it just wouldn't suit me. So for those reasons, sorry, Brett Baier. I feel like you're going to lose a little money on this. I'm not buying it. I have the $32 million, but I'm not paying it.
Shawn mentioned the wine bar, the wine storage. We went out to dinner last night. Shawn's like, "You want to get a bottle?" I'm like, "Of what?" This guy's drinking IPAs his whole life. All of a sudden, he's like, "What's the white wine menu look like?"
Well, the thing is, like, I'm trying to, go to a different side. I'm tired of the IPAs. The IPAs now are keeping me up at night. I can't fall asleep, and they're bad for my body. I feel like they're weighing on me. So I'm like, all right, what else can I start drinking? I used to drink wine. I like the red wines, so I think I can start going to Brett Baier's little cabinet there and start breaking some open.
By the way, I saw that he's a 2.7 handicap.
Wow.
So maybe he lived in this house. I think he got some good use out of that sim.
Is that good?
Because when I look at Brett Baier, like if I see him
really
on TV,
good.
I'm like, I'm not thinking that he's very athletic for some reason. I didn't. It's funny when you see somebody on TV and you don't realize who they are in person or what their abilities are, and then you're like, he's a 2.7 handicap. That's amazing, and he has a basketball court. I couldn't even see the guy playing basketball. So,
okay, if you had a chipping range and you had a golf sim, and
I would be pretty darn good.
And I gave you a year in a $32 million house, like, I think you could get pretty good.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with golf is like, you have to play often to be good. I mean, I'm okay. Matt and I are okay, but like we don't play. We don't have the time. That's the thing.
So here's
Just
the
don't buy
deal.
it for only the golf sim, though.
That's right.
Well, I mean, that's probably why I would buy it. Here's my thoughts. DC is by far one of the most underrated cities for real estate. Like when I think globally, like I think like Hong Kong, and I think like San Francisco, like New York, London, and then you got DC. DC is not only the capital of the United States, DC is the capital of the world. Mm-hmm. Like this is an incredible town. And you're telling me the most expensive property that's ever sold in DC is only $24 million?
It's pretty incredible, right?
I mean, people in New York City sell $24 million co-ops and condos every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 100% in. Yeah, this is a compound. This is
man.
walled in. This is, but if I buy this, which by the way, someone mentioned it as solar panels.
Oh, okay.
For a Fox News host. kind of a little bit there. But if you're telling me I get a compound, so what if it's 16,000 square feet? So what if I'm not going to see 2/3 of the house a majority of my life? This is an incredible opportunity to purchase in one of the most incredible cities, in an amazing neighborhood where you essentially would never have to leave your compound. I'm so in. I'll take it for 30. How about that? I'll take it for 30.
30 million. Matt's in.
Wow.
Me and Mike are out. The funny thing is, he said that he's moving to Palm Beach, Florida, or somewhere down there in Florida. The funny thing is, I was reading an article today about this, about insurance costs, like have gone through the roof down there, and people are just like leaving their homes because they're getting bills now for insurance of $32,000 a year.
Like flood insurance?
Like hurricane, flood, whatever.
Wow.
And like they've gone up astronomically over the last couple of years. And so a lot of people are like, well, it makes more sense for me to go uninsured and rebuild the house if I need to, or just sell the land and I'll be further ahead than pay $32,000, $64,000, whatever it is per year for insurance. It's nuts.
I think you sent me a link where it was about these people that are going bare or going naked, where they're like, we don't pay flood insurance, we just save $800 a month.
I love the accent that comes out.
Well, wait a second. And they're
Hopefully
like,
it
yeah.
doesn't flood anytime
They're
soon.
like, yeah, at the end of the year, we got like $16,000 in case something happens. I'm like, isn't that just flood insurance? Like, why don't you just have? So I guess maybe they don't cover for flood insurance or it's something like that.
Well, that's another thing you have to look about is in your insurance policy, what is that actually covering? What is a flood? Is a flood an upwelling of water? Is it a wave of water? They will be particular on that, and you could find yourself paying all this money and then still not be covered. So you have to be careful.
Yeah.
And my father-in-law lives down in Florida, and he was saying to me like a year ago, he's like, my insurance is going crazy, and I was like, that's got to be crap. There's no way that that's possible. And the insurance company was saying, we need you to replace your roof. And I was like, that's insane. I've never had an insurance company call me and say, oh, I need to replace a roof. But it was true. They needed them to replace the roof because they felt like it wasn't going to withstand a hurricane. So they wanted him to do it now to keep his insurance. And you know what he did?
Wow.
Peace out insurance. He doesn't have any anymore.
Wow.
That's what a lot of people are doing.
Usually the convincing's the other way around.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, right? It's crazy. So insurance in Florida, man, before you move, think about that.
Well, with this $32 million house, Mike, I mean, I'd love to walk through it with you. It'll never happen because they won't have an open house, but I'd love to just walk through it with you, and you could just point out all these like little minutia things that my peanut brain would never even consider.
Yeah.
But I mean, allegedly, it's one of the finest, residences, ever built and constructed and team. And if they want this price point, it better be the best.
Hey, you know what? As long as it's built by human beings, you're going to find stuff wrong with it. So
that's right.
There you go.
That'd be an interesting concept, though. Go through a house with a builder, after it's constructed, and see what actually is wrong in different aspects.
It's interesting you say that. When I first started working with my builder, every house I walked into, especially new construction, I'd be like, oh, this is beautiful. And I'd be like, Lou, check this thing out, man. Look what the competition's doing. And then he'd walk me through it. He'd be like, what the hell is that? Look at that. I'm like, oh, my God, he's right. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
So,
The eyes of a builder.
Well, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you're in or out on the $31.9 million property on Fox Hill Road. And for Shawn, Mike, and myself, until next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.